Hey guys, welcome to DIY Crafts. In this video, I'm going to show you a step-by-step pattern of making this amigurumi mango. So let's get started. For this, I'm using cotton 4-ply yarn and a crochet hook of size 3 mm. Now let's do the stem of our mango. For this, take the brown color yarn and begin with a slip knot and make sure you leave 10-inch tail end at the beginning. Now wrap this tail end across the needle as shown and make chain 1. Yarn over and draw through both the loops on the hook. And repeat this process until you have the required height of your stem. For this project, I am making a stem up to 7 stitches. So that's the 5th one, I guess. 6 and the 7th one. And this is how the stem looks like. Now hold both the threads together and pull it through the last chain. Trim the excess thread by leaving a 3-inch tail end, and these tail ends are used to attach it to the base of our mango. Now put this aside and let's start making the leaf of the mango. Let's begin with a green color yarn and make a slip knot. Now make chain 8. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now skip the first chain from the hook and into the next chain make 1 slip stitch. Into the next stitch make 1 single crochet. Then in the next chain make a half double crochet increase, that is 2 half double crochet stitches into the same stitch. In the next stitch make a double crochet increase, that is 2 double crochet stitches into the same stitch. That's the second one. Now in the next 2 stitches make 1 double crochet in each stitch. That's the first one, and in the next stitch there is another one. Now into the last stitch make 3 double crochet stitches. That's first one, 2, and then the third one. Here is where we are going to work the stem of our leaf, and for that make chain 4. Now skip the first chain from the hook and in the next 3 stitches make 3 slip stitches. That's the first slip stitch, that's the second one, and the third one. Now on to the third DC. In the last stitch we are going to make a picot stitch. So insert the needle as shown into the third DC and then make 1 slip stitch. That's the picot stitch. Now into the same last stitch we are going to make 3 more double crochet stitches. This is the second double crochet and this is how it looks like, and make the last double crochet into the same stitch. So into the last stitch we have 6 double crochet stitches with the stem in between. Now let's continue with the pattern. Into the next stitch we have 1 double crochet stitch. Now in the next stitch we have another double crochet. In the next stitch make 2 double crochet stitches. That's a DC increase. Then we have half double crochet stitch increase. It's just the replicate pattern on the front side. Now into the next stitch make a single crochet and into the first stitch make 1 slip stitch. First chain basically, that's the first chain. So make a slip stitch into the first chain, and the chain which we have left in that we are making one slip stitch, and this is how the mango leaf looks like. It's long and elongated. Now trim the excess thread and weave in the ends. And this is how the mango leaf looks like after weaving in all the ends and adjusting the pattern. Now take a little piece of yarn and a tapestry needle, and now we are going to attach this leaf to the stem with the help of this yarn. Now pass the needle through the stem and leaf as shown in the video. Just choose any side of the stem and pass the needle through that, and then grab the leaf and attach it across the stem. Now make a secure join and then weave in the ends into the leaf. Trim the excess threads, and now put this aside and let's start working on the base of the mango. Now begin with the yellow color yarn and make a magic ring. Now make chain 1 and adjust the size of the magic ring. Now let's start making the first row, and this pattern is worked in spirals. So let's start by making a single crochet stitches into the center. That's the second one. 3, 4, 5 and 6. So in the first row we will have 6 single crochet stitches. Now close the magic ring tightly and insert the hook into the first stitch. Now let's start making the second row. For this, make 2 single crochet stitches into the first stitch, that is a single crochet increase. Now to mark the beginning of the second row, take a stitch marker and put it into the first stitch of the second row. Now continue to make single crochet increases in each and every stitch. That's another single crochet stitch increase. And next make 2 single crochet stitches into the same stitch and continue this pattern throughout the row until you reach the starting point. Now in the last stitch, making a single crochet increase for the second row, and this completes the second row, and we will have 12 single crochet stitches. Now remove the stitch marker and into the first stitch make 1 single stitch and put the stitch marker back in place to mark the beginning of third row. And we have already done 1 single stitch, and now make single crochet increase, that is 2 single crochet stitches into the same stitch, and 1 single stitch followed by single crochet increase, again 1 single stitch and 1 increase. Now continue this pattern throughout the row until you reach the starting point. And here we are making the last single crochet increase of the third row, and by the end of this row we will have 18 single crochet stitches. Now remove the stitch marker, and for the fourth row begin with 1 single stitch and mark the beginning of the fourth row by marking the first stitch, and in the next stitch make 1 increase. Into the later stitch make 1 single stitch. Now we are repeating this pattern of 1 stitch increase and 1 stitch. That's 1 stitch, single crochet increase in the next stitch, and 1 single crochet stitch in the next stitch. Now repeat this pattern throughout the row until you reach the starting point. Here I am making the last single crochet of the fourth row, and you will have 24 single stitches by the end of this fourth row. Now remove the stitch marker and mark the beginning of the fifth row by making 1 single stitch and putting the stitch marker back in place. I have already done 1 single stitch, so make 2 more single stitches. That's second one and then the third one. We have 3 single stitches and then an increase for the fifth row. Again 3 single crochet stitches, that's 1, 2 and 3. And then we have 1 increase, that's 2 single stitches into the same stitch. Now repeat this pattern throughout the row until the starting point. We have the last increase in the last stitch, and this completes the 5th row with 30 single crochet stitches. You can see the shape of this circle. Now remove the stitch marker and let's start making the 6th round. For this, begin with single crochet stitch and put the stitch marker to mark the beginning of the 6th round. We are going to make one single crochet stitch in each and every stitch. Just one single stitch throughout the row until you reach the starting point, and repeat the same pattern for the 7th row as well. So we will have 30 single stitches in each and every row. That's row 6 and row 7. This is the shape. Now this is the time you can attach the stem and leaf on the top of a mango. Now grab the tail ends of the stem and insert them onto the top of the mango as shown. Insert them using a tapestry needle and now make a knot by using these tail ends. You don't need to trim the excess threads, just make a tighter knot at the center so they don't come your way while crocheting. Now flip the work and let's continue with the pattern. Now that we have completed 7 rows, we are going to start making the 8th row. Adjust the threads and let's start making 8th round. Begin with one single stitch and second single stitch in the next stitch, and now mark the beginning of the 8th row by putting the stitch marker into the first stitch. Now we have done 2 single crochet stitches, and then in the next stitch we have an increase. Then make another 2 single crochet stitches. So for the 8th row we are going to repeat the pattern of 2 single stitch, increase and 2 single stitch. So again begin with 2 single stitch, increase, that's 2 single stitches into the same stitch, and again 2 single stitch. And now repeat this pattern of 2 single stitch, increase and 2 single stitch throughout the row until you reach the starting point. And here making the last single crochet of 8th row, and we will have 36 single stitches by the end of this one. Now for the 9th row, again begin with a single stitch and mark its beginning. As we have done already one single stitch, we have to do 4 more. So that's the second one, 3, 4 and 5. So total 5 single crochet stitches, and then in this stitch we have an increase, that is 2 single stitches into the same stitch. Now we are going to repeat this pattern of 5 single crochet stitches and increase. So that's the third one, 4 and 5, and then we have one increase. Now repeat this pattern throughout the row until you reach the starting point. Now we are at the last stitch of the 9th row, so complete it with an increase, and by the end of this row we will have 42 single crochet stitches. Now remove the stitch marker and let's start making the 10th round. Make one single stitch and put the stitch marker back in place, and now continue to make one single stitch in each and every stitch. Just one single crochet stitch throughout the row until you reach the starting point, and this means by the end of the 10th row again we will have 42 single crochet stitches. Making the last single stitch in the 10th row, and now remove the stitch marker and let's start making the 11th round. Begin with a single stitch and put the stitch marker back in the place. Make 2 more single stitches, so total of 3 single stitch, and then in the next stitch we have one increase. Now in the next 3 stitches we have one single stitch in each stitch. That's the second one and then the third one. Now we are going to repeat this pattern of 3 single stitch. That's 1, 2, 3, increase, and again 3 single stitches. That's 1, 2, and 3. Repeat this pattern of 3 single stitch, increase and 3 single stitch throughout the row. And here we have reached the starting point. Now make the last single crochet stitch, and this completes your 11th row, and we will have 48 single stitches. Now remove the stitch marker and make one single stitch. Put the stitch marker back in the place to mark the beginning of 12th row. Now make one single stitch in each and every stitch throughout the row until you reach the starting point. Repeat the pattern of one single stitch in each and every stitch for rows 13 to row 16 as well. Which means we will have 48 stitches in each row from row 12 to row 16. By the end of the 16th row, this is how the mango shape is taking out. So now let's continue with the pattern. From row 17 onwards, it is little bit typical to follow the pattern, so keep up with the flow. Now remove the stitch marker and let's start making row 17. For row 17, instead of single stitch, we are going to begin with the invisible decrease. Insert the hook into the front loops of next 2 stitches and then make a single stitch. Now put this stitch marker, and this is the first stitch in your 17th row. Then in the next stitch, make one single crochet stitch. Again, one invisible decrease. So invisible decrease, single stitch and invisible decrease. And then make 16 single crochet stitches. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 and 16. So after completing 16 single crochet stitches, we have one invisible decrease. And then make 2 single crochet stitches. That's first one and then the second one. Again we have one more invisible decrease here. And continue by making 16 single crochet stitches on the other side. One single crochet stitch in each stitch for next 16 stitches. Here I am not giving the count. You just focus on making single crochet stitches. Now after completing the 16 single crochet stitches, again we will have one invisible decrease. We will have 5 stitches. Now here we have one invisible decrease, and then make one single stitch. Into the last 2 stitches we have one more invisible decrease. And this completes your 17th row, and we will have 42 single crochet stitches. And look at the shape. One side we are decreasing more and other side we are decreasing a little less. So this takes the shape of a mango. Now remove the stitch marker and begin with one single stitch for the 18th row. Now put the stitch marker back in place and then make one single crochet stitch in each and every stitch. Just one single crochet stitch in each and every stitch throughout the row. Making the last single crochet stitch of the 18th row, and we will have 42 single crochet stitches. Now remove the stitch marker and begin the 19th row by making an invisible decrease. Now put the stitch marker to mark the beginning of the 19th row. So after one invisible decrease, we have one single crochet in the next stitch, and again one invisible decrease in the next 2 stitches. Now for the next 13 stitches, make one single crochet stitch. That's the second one, 3, and likewise until 13 stitches. After making 13 single crochet stitches, we have one invisible decrease. So basically we are decreasing on the opposite sides, and then we have 2 single crochet stitches followed by another invisible decrease, and again we have 13 single crochet stitches. After 13 single crochet stitches, again we have 1 invisible decrease. We will have 5 stitches left. So make 1 invisible decrease and then 1 single stitch and 1 more invisible decrease. Now this completes your 19th row with 36 single crochet stitches. And look at the shape of a mango. Now remove the stitch marker and let's start making row 20. Begin with a single stitch and put the stitch marker back in place to mark the beginning of 20th row. And continue to make 1 single crochet stitch in each and every stitch throughout the row until you reach the starting point. Just 1 stitch in each and every stitch. So we are alternating the pattern by decreasing in one row and single crochet stitch in another row. Likewise the shape is maintained. Making the last single crochet stitch of 20th row, and now remove the stitch marker and begin the 21st row with an invisible decrease. Now put the stitch marker back in place, and this is the beginning of 21st row. Make 1 single stitch in the next stitch, and again we have 1 more invisible decrease, and then make 10 single crochet stitches. That's 2, 3, 4, and likewise this is the 10th single crochet stitch, and then we have 1 invisible decrease. Into the next stitch we have 1 single crochet stitch 2 times, and then we have another invisible decrease. Now continue making 10 single crochet stitches. After making another 10 single stitches, now do 1 invisible decrease. In the next stitch make 1 single stitch and then again another invisible decrease. At any point of time, if you feel the video is going faster, adjust the playback speed settings of the YouTube and make it slow down so you can follow the pattern while crocheting along. Now remove the stitch marker and let's start making row 22. Begin with a single stitch and put the stitch marker back in place. Now make 1 single stitch in each and every stitch throughout the row. Just 1 single crochet stitch until you reach the starting point, and by the end of this 22nd row you will have 30 single crochet stitches. Here I am making the last single crochet stitch, and this completes your row 22. Now remove the stitch marker and begin with an invisible decrease for row 23. After the invisible decrease, make 1 single stitch and then make 1 invisible decrease again. Don't forget to put the stitch marker, as I have forgot. I just counted the stitches back to put the stitch marker in place. So after this we are going to make 7 single crochet stitches after the second decrease. So I just counted back the 7 single stitches, decrease, single stitch and decrease to put the stitch marker. So every time whenever you are going from first row to the next row, just remember to put the stitch marker so that you do not miss the beginning of the rows. So now let's continue with the pattern. Here after 7 single crochet stitches I am making an invisible decrease, and then we have 2 single crochet stitches, that's 1 and 2. Again we have another invisible decrease followed by 7 single crochet stitches. That's again 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7, and then in the last 5 stitches again we have one invisible decrease, one single stitch, and finally the last invisible decrease of row 23. And by the end of this row 23 we will have 24 single crochet stitches. Now remove the stitch marker and let's start making row 24. For this, begin with one single crochet stitch and put the stitch marker to mark the beginning of row 24. Now make one single crochet stitch in each and every stitch throughout the row until you reach the starting point. And repeat the same pattern for row 25 as well. So we'll have 24 stitches in row 24 and 25 as well. Now stop it here. Just stretch the pattern a little bit to get the shape of a mango. Just flatten it so that you can see the texture and shape of it. You can see the different style of curving on either sides. Now take a fiber fill and stuff it into the mango toy. Take a good amount of fiber fill, but make sure you do not overstuff it. Overstuffing always ruins the shape of the project. The written pattern of this amigurumi mango is given in the description. Do check the link. Meanwhile, if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please do subscribe and click on the bell icon to get the notifications for my latest videos. Also, make sure to follow me on other social media platforms. Links are given in the description. So once putting the enough stuff inside and adjusting the stuffing into the mango, remove the stitch marker and let's continue with the pattern. And now we are going to work for row 26. Adjust the loop, and we have already removed the stitch marker. And now begin with an invisible decrease for row 26. Now put the stitch marker back and then make one single stitch into the next stitch. Now into the next 2 stitches we have another invisible decrease, and then make 4 single crochet stitches. After stuffing, it makes a little difficult for you to cope up with the pattern. So then 4 single crochet stitches, and again we have one invisible decrease here. Now make 2 single crochet stitches, and then we have another invisible decrease. Then make 4 single crochet stitches. That's 1, 2, 3 and 4. Now make an invisible decrease in the next stitches, and then one single crochet stitch, and finally the last invisible decrease. And this completes your row 26 with 18 single stitches. Now remove the stitch marker and make one single stitch into the next stitch, and let's start making row 27. Now put the stitch marker back. Just make one single stitch in each and every stitch for row 27 and row 28. So we will have 18 stitches in row 27 and row 28 as well. Now remove the stitch marker and let's start making the row 29. Begin with one invisible decrease and put the stitch marker to mark the beginning of 29th row. And then make another invisible decrease. So we have 2 invisible decreases. Then make 3 single stitch. That's 1, 2 and the third one. Then we have again 2 more invisible decreases. That's 1 and 2. Then make 3 single stitches again. That's 1, 2 and 3. Finally we will be left with 4 stitches and we have to make 2 invisible decreases. And now this completes your row 29 with 12 single crochet stitches. Remove the stitch marker. Make 1 single stitch into the next stitch and put the stitch marker back in place. Make sure your tension is intact. Now put the stitch marker back in place and let's make row 30. For this row we are going to make 1 single crochet stitch in each and every stitch, which means by the end of the row 30 we will have 12 single crochet stitches. And now remove the stitch marker and let's start making the last row of our pattern. And before that, stuff this extra gap by filling in the stuffing. Just poke the stuff into the pattern, into the toy. And now after putting enough stuffing, adjust the shape of the mango a little bit. And now let's continue with the pattern, and this is the last row of this pattern. Begin with 1 invisible decrease and now put the stitch marker to mark the beginning of row 31, and now continue to make invisible decreases throughout the row for 6 times. That's the second one. This is the third invisible decrease, and likewise continue for 3 more times. This is the fourth one. That's the 5th invisible decrease, and finally the 6th invisible decrease. And this completes row 31 by 6 stitches. Now remove the stitch marker and into the first stitch make a slip stitch. Now chain 1 and trim the excess thread by leaving a little long tail end to close the project. Just a tail end of 5-inch length. Now fasten off and insert this tail end into the tapestry needle. Now insert the needle into the front loops of all the stitches in row 31 as shown. Just only into the front loops, and now pull the tail end tightly to close the opening. You can pull it tight but be gentle. Now into the next stitch, make a knot and now pass the needle through the mango center, and now trim the excess thread, weave in the ends. Trim the excess thread close to the project and then tuck in the tail end. And this completes your amigurumi mango. You can adjust the shape and adjust the stuffing by rolling it in between your palms. You can see the shape of a mango. It's so beautiful and we have got a perfect shape, isn't it? You can add some detailing to the mango and show your creativity by adding a face to it and making it in different colors and so on. I hope you all enjoyed watching this tutorial. Do give this pattern a try and let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. See you all in the next video. Thank you for watching. Please like the video, share it and subscribe to DIY Crafts.